Demon appears at 3 a.m. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. The clock strikes 12. The grandfather clock in the hallway sighed its nightly lament, each wooden tick echoing through the cavernous silence of Amelia's old Victorian house. It was 11:58 p.m., and the ritual of unease began. Amelia, curled up with a book in her worn armchair, felt a prickle crawl up her spine, a sensation as familiar as the warm threads of the tapestry behind her. She glanced at the clock, its hands poised for the inevitable chime that would usher in the witching hour. Amelia wasn't superstitious, not exactly, but this house, inherited from a distant relative, held a peculiar chill that seemed to intensify at the stroke of midnight. Strange creaks and groans emanated from the floorboards. Drafts snaked through unseen cracks, and the shadows in the corners seemed to writhe with a life of their own. Tonight, the unease was sharper, laced with a metallic tang that made her throat constrict. She closed her book with a snap, the sound jarring in the sudden quiet. The tick-tock of the clock grew louder, each beat a drumbeat to her mounting anxiety. She tried to focus on the book's forgotten story, but the words danced in front of her eyes, meaningless against the backdrop of her rising fear. A gust of wind howled outside, rattling the old windows like skeletal fingers. The lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic counterpoint to the receding howl of the wind. When the lights flickered back on, casting long, distorted shadows across the room, she knew something had shifted. The air grew thick and heavy with an unseen presence. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, smells that shouldn't exist within these walls, filled her nostrils. A low hum vibrated beneath the floorboards, which echoed in his ears. It wasn't a sound, not exactly, but a feeling, a primal tremor that resonated deep within her bones. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the silence. It wasn't human, a guttural shriek that sent chills down to her core. It came from the attic, a sealed-off room at the top of the house, a place Amelia had never dared to enter. The scream echoed, bouncing off the walls, each repetition clawing at her sanity. Panic clawed at her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee this oppressive atmosphere. But her legs were frozen, rooted to the spot by an unseen force. She forced herself to breathe, in and willing her fear into submission. As the final echo of the scream faded, an unnatural silence descended, heavier and more oppressive than before. The metallic tang in the air intensified, making her eyes water. Then, a new sound emerged, a rhythmic scraping against wood, slow and deliberate. It came from the attic door, a heavy oak panel secured by a rusty padlock. Amelia's breath hitched. The scraping grew louder, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the floor. Padlock creaked, its rusty protest swallowed by the growing growl. With a sickening groan, the door gave way, revealing a sliver of darkness that seemed to pulsate with an unholy light. Terror, cold and absolute, washed over Amelia. This wasn't just an old house settling, an overactive imagination, or a figment of her loneliness. This was something else, something ancient and evil, awakened by the stroke of midnight. As the darkness in the doorway writhed and expanded, tendrils of icy fear snaked around her heart, squeezing the life out of her scream. Clock struck 12, its chime lost in the deafening roar that erupted from the attic, a sound that promised untold horrors, a sound that announced the arrival of something far worse than the shadows. Amelia didn't move, couldn't move, as the darkness poured forth from the attic, engulfing the room in an inky blackness. The last thing she saw before the shadows claimed her was the glint of two malevolent red eyes, burning with an unholy hunger. The clock continued its relentless ticking, a chilling metronome to the symphony of terror that had begun. Chapter 2: Shadows and Whispers. The memory of the chilling scream and the pulsating darkness clung to Amelia like a shroud. Sleep, when it finally came, was a tempestuous affair. Nightmares plagued her, vivid and unsettling. Towering figures with burning eyes stalked her through desolate landscapes, their guttural growls echoing in her ears. She'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, the remnants of terror clinging to her like cobwebs. Daylight brought a semblance of normalcy. The house seemed less oppressive, the shadows less menacing. But the unease lingered, a persistent itch beneath the surface. The scraping sound from the attic had ceased, but an unsettling silence had taken its place, broken only by the creaks and groans of the settling house. Amelia tried to convince herself it was all her imagination, fueled by loneliness and grief after her aunt's passing. She busied herself with cleaning, rearranging furniture, anything to dispel the lingering chill. Yet, as dusk approached, the shadows seemed to lengthen, whispering secrets in the corners of her vision. The whispers started subtly, barely audible murmurs during moments of quiet. They spoke of things best left unknown, of entities lurking just beyond the veil of perception. At first, Amelia dismissed them as drafts playing tricks on her mind. But the whispers grew bolder, clearer, weaving tales of a darkness that yearned to be unleashed. One night, as she lay in bed, paralyzed by an invisible force, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, raspy and cold. It spoke of the attic, of the power it held, of the entity it housed. Panic choked her body frozen by the weight of unseen eyes watching her. The voice chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in the wind, which echoed in his ears. "Don't be afraid," it hissed, the words slithering into her mind. "Fear is the key. Fear opens the door." Then, with a deafening snap, the sleep paralysis lifted, leaving Amelia gasping for air, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The voice was gone, but the echo of its words lingered, a poisonous seed planted in her mind. Days bled into nights, each one punctuated by unsettling occurrences. Objects moved on their own, doors creaked open inexplicably, and the oppressive silence was occasionally shattered by disembodied laughter that sent fear into his body. Amelia tried to ignore it, to find solace in routine and reason. But the whispers returned, insidious and persuasive, chipping away at her resolve. One evening, driven by a morbid curiosity, Amelia found herself drawn to the attic door. The padlock had mysteriously vanished, replaced by a gaping maw of darkness. Fear gnawed at her, but an irresistible pull, a perverse fascination, propelled her forward. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and hesitated. "Don't be afraid," a voice echoed in her mind, the same cold, raspy whisper. Just a peek. With a deep breath, Amelia pushed the door open. A wave of icy air washed over her, carrying the metallic tang she now associated with the darkness. She peered into the abyss, her heart hammering against her ribs. The darkness stared back, a living entity that thrummed with unseen power. In that moment, Amelia knew ignoring the darkness was no longer an option. The whispers had taken root, and the entity slumbering in the attic, awakened by her fear, was waiting. The game of shadows and whispers was over. The true horror had begun. Chapter 3: The Uninvited Guest. Clock downstairs chimed twice, each resonant gong echoing through the silent house. Amelia, tucked under a mound of blankets, felt the familiar prickle of unease, fear up her body. 2 o'clock. Just another hour until... She squeezed her eyes shut, refusing to acknowledge the looming witching hour. Sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside, the whispers, thankfully dormant for the past few days, had been replaced by a constant hum, a low vibration that seemed to emanate from the very walls. It was a sound that resonated with unease, a prelude to something sinister. Then the clock chimed again. 3. The air grew thick, heavy with an unseen pressure. The hum intensified, morphing into a low growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, every instinct screaming at her to flee, but she was paralyzed, rooted to the spot by a chilling certainty that something was coming. The growl abruptly ceased, replaced by an unnerving silence. Dread coiled around Amelia's chest, tighter with each passing second. Then, a gust of wind howled outside, rattling the windows like skeletal fingers. The room plunged into darkness, the power failing with an ominous crackle. Panic clawed at Amelia's throat. She fumbled for her bedside lamp, its feeble glow barely penetrating the oppressive gloom. The shadows danced and writhed on the walls, taking on monstrous forms that seemed to mock her fear. Suddenly, a new sound pierced the silence, a rhythmic scraping against wood, slow and deliberate. It came from the attic door, the darkness beyond it pulsating with an unnatural light. Amelia's breath hitched. The scraping grew louder, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards. With a sickening groan, the door gave way, revealing a gaping maw of darkness that seemed to breathe, to hunger. A wave of icy air washed over Amelia, carrying the metallic tang of fear and decay. She stumbled back, her lamp clattering to the floor, plunging her into complete darkness. Terror, cold and absolute, gripped her, but it was replaced by a surge of defiance. She wouldn't be a victim. She wouldn't let the whispers and shadows win. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. The growl deepened, evolving into a chilling laughter that echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls like malevolent whispers. The darkness in the doorway writhed, coalescing into a form. A tall, hulking figure stepped into the room, its outline barely discernible against the pulsating darkness. Two eyes, burning embers in the gloom, fixed on Amelia. They were red, the color of dried blood, and held intelligence that sent fear down her body. The figure's mouth stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of needle-like teeth that glinted in the faint moonlight filtering through the window. "So curious," the figure rasped, its voice like gravel scraping on bone. "You dared to peek." Amelia swallowed hard, trying to find her voice. "What do you want?" she asked, surprised at her own courage. The figure chuckled, the sound sending shivers down her body. "I want what you crave, Amelia," it hissed, its voice slithering into her mind. "I want your fear." The air grew colder, the entity's presence smothering. Amelia stumbled back, her foot hitting the fallen lamp. A spark flickered, momentarily illuminating the figure. It wasn't human, not entirely. Its skin was a sickly gray, taut over skeletal bones, and its form seemed to shimmer with an unholy energy. Fear threatened to consume her, but Amelia fought back. She wouldn't let the entity feed on her terror. She remembered the whispers, their seductive promises of power, the key they spoke of. Was that the key to banishing this creature, or was it a trap? With a desperate hope, Amelia spoke, her voice surprisingly strong. "You won't win," she declared. "I won't let you feed on my fear." The entity tilted its head, its red eyes narrowing. "You are brave, little human," it rasped, amusement lacing its voice. "But bravery alone cannot withstand the darkness." It lunged forward, its claws extended, but Amelia stumbled aside. It wasn't grace that saved her, but a strange sensation, a tingling warmth spreading through her body. It felt familiar, like a forgotten memory, stirring. Suddenly, the room was bathed in a blinding white light. The entity recoiled, its form shimmering and distorting. It screeched, a sound that tore at Amelia's eardrums, and retreated back into the darkness. Chapter 4. Panic and Research. The white light faded, leaving Amelia trembling in the darkness. The oppressive silence had returned, thicker and heavier than before. The entity was gone, for now, but the terror it inspired clung to her like a second skin. Dawn's weak light seeped through the window, painting the room in pale hues. Exhausted and shaken, Amelia collapsed onto the bed, the events of the night replaying in her mind like a macabre film. What she saw, what she felt. It couldn't be real, could it? Denial, however, offered little solace. The scent of sulfur still lingered in the air, a physical reminder of the entity's presence. Doubt gnawed at her, fueled by the whispers that now echoed in her memory, their promises of darkness and power. With a trembling hand, Amelia reached for her laptop, drawn by a desperate need to understand. She searched for anything related to demons, hauntings, anything that could explain the entity she encountered. Hours melted away as she devoured articles, forums, and obscure websites. There was a disturbing amount of information out there, a tapestry woven from folklore, religious texts, and personal accounts. Some dismissed it as superstition. Others spoke of genuine encounters with malevolent entities. The more Amelia read, the more she realized her experience wasn't isolated. She stumbled upon a website dedicated to the paranormal, filled with stories of encounters with similar entities. One account, eerily reminiscent of her own, detailed a creature with burning red eyes and a chilling laughter, lurking in an old farmhouse attic. The user called it a shadow demon, an entity fueled by fear and negativity. A knot of dread tightened in Amelia's stomach. This entity thrived on her fear, it had said. The whispers, were they its way of feeding on her terror? Panic clawed at her throat. How could she fight something that fed on her emotions? Another post offered a sliver of hope. It spoke of an ancient symbol said to ward off shadow demons. It was a complex sigil, etched with strange lines and runes. The poster warned of the symbol's power, urging caution and stating it should only be used as a last resort. Amelia stared at the sigil, its intricate lines seeming to pulsate with an unknown energy. Was this her answer? Could a mere symbol banish an entity that seemed to defy mortal laws? Hesitation warred with desperation. She couldn't just sit there and wait for the creature to return. The morning bled into afternoon, punctuated by fits of trembling and bouts of determined research. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Amelia reached a decision. She couldn't keep this a secret. Fear gnawed at her, whispering of ridicule and disbelief. But the alternative, facing the entity alone, was far more terrifying. She found a phone number belonging to a local paranormal investigator, a woman named Elizabeth with a reputation for skepticism and pragmatism. Amelia's voice trembled as she explained her experience, expecting scoffs or dismissal. But to her surprise, Elizabeth listened intently, her voice calm and professional. It's not uncommon to experience strange things in old houses, Elizabeth said. But shadow demons, those are rare. Can you describe the entity in more detail? Amelia recounted everything. The whispers, the red eyes, the chilling laughter. Elizabeth remained silent for a moment, then sighed. It sounds like you've encountered something real, Amelia, and something dangerous. Relief, laced with trepidation, washed over Amelia. She wasn't crazy, but now what? Elizabeth explained the nature of shadow demons, their dependence on fear, and the potential dangers of engaging them directly. She warned against using the sigil without understanding its true power and offered to come to the house herself, equipped with tools and knowledge to investigate and potentially defend against the entity. Hesitantly, Amelia agreed. The fear hadn't vanished, but the knowledge that she wasn't alone, that someone believed her, provided a much-needed anchor in the storm of terror. As darkness embraced the house, Amelia knew her fight was far from over. But armed with newfound knowledge and the glimmer of hope, she was ready to face the shadows once more. Chapter 5. Trapped in Darkness. The days following Elizabeth's visit were a blur of anticipation and dread. Amelia scoured the web for more information on shadow demons, her hope clinging to the sigil and its potential power. Yet, the entity didn't wait for her preparations. Its presence grew bolder, more intrusive. Shadows danced with malice in the corners of her vision, morphing into grotesque shapes that mocked her sanity. Whispers slithered into her sleep, weaving nightmares of endless darkness and chilling laughter. The metallic tang of the entity's presence became a constant companion, a reminder of the unseen predator lurking just beyond the veil. One unsettling night, while battling insomnia, Amelia swore she saw the entity flit past her window, a fleeting glimpse of red eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a constant state of hypervigilance. Her body ached with exhaustion, her nerves stretched taut with anticipation of the next torment. Isolation crept in like a cold fog. Fear silenced her desire to confide in friends or family, the fear of ridicule or disbelief holding her captive. Elizabeth's visit offered a lifeline, but the investigator remained elusive, promising assistance, but offering no immediate solution. Alone and increasingly desperate, Amelia turned to the sigil. Each intricate line seemed to hold untold power, both alluring and intimidating. The warnings against its misuse echoed in her mind, but so did the chilling laughter of the entity, a constant reminder of her precarious situation. Driven by a mix of fear and defiance, she set about replicating the sigil on parchment. Tracing the lines felt like drawing power from an unseen source, a surge of energy coursing through her veins. When it was finished, she hung it above her bed, a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. For a night, a semblance of peace descended. The nightmares subsided, the whispers seemed muffled. But morning brought a harsh reality check. The entity, enraged by her defiance, upped the ante. Objects vanished and reappeared in unsettling locations. Doors slammed shut on their own, the hinges screaming their protests. The house, once a refuge, became a prison. Each creak, each groan, shivers down her body. The constant terror took its toll. Amelia grew pale and gaunt, her eyes shadowed with fear. She started neglecting work, withdrawing further from social interaction, consumed by the battle within the walls of her own home. One afternoon, a particularly brazen manifestation pushed her to the brink. As she cooked dinner, the gas stove ignited on its own, flames licking at the pan with an unnatural ferocity. Panic seized her. Dropping the pan, she scrambled back, heart hammering against her ribs. The fire sputtered and died, leaving behind an acrid smell and a chilling silence. Tears streamed down Amelia's face, a mixture of fear and frustration. How long could she live like this? Was she losing her mind? Was the entity winning? Exhausted and desperate, she sank onto the floor, the sigil slipping from her trembling hand. As it landed, a faint glow emanated from the parchment, the intricate lines pulsing with an ethereal light. A memory surfaced, a forgotten fragment from her childhood about her grandmother. a woman known for her unusual knowledge of the occult. Had she spoken of such symbols, of their power and dangers? With a desperate hope, Amelia searched through old boxes, unearthing dusty journals and faded photographs. In one, tucked between the pages of a leather-bound book, she found a hand-drawn sketch of the sigil, accompanied by cryptic notes in her grandmother's handwriting. "Beware the power you wield," the notes read, "for it draws not only your enemy, but the shadows within." A cold realization washed over Amelia. The fear, the despair, the anger she felt towards the entity, were these fueling its power? Was she unwittingly feeding the very monster she sought to repel? The revelation hit her like a physical blow. The battle wasn't just against the entity, but against the darkness within herself. The sigil could offer protection, but true victory lay in conquering her own fear. With newfound resolve, Amelia picked up the sigil. It no longer felt cold or daunting, but a reminder of her inner strength. She would not be a victim. She would face the darkness, not with anger or desperation, but with courage and clarity. As dusk approached, the familiar dread crept in, but this time it was met with a different kind of resistance. Amelia closed her eyes, focusing on her breath, calming the storm within. The whispers were still there, but they sounded fainter, their hold on her loosening. The room plunged into darkness, but the fear didn't consume her. She wasn't alone. The sigil felt warm against her chest, a symbol not just of protection, but of her own inner light. The shadows danced, the air grew. Chapter 6: Whispers of Hope. Exhausted, Amelia drifted off to sleep, the sigil clutched tightly in her hand. She dreamed of her grandmother, a warm smile playing on her lips. The dream was hazy, filled with whispers and flickering images, but one phrase pierced through the fog: "Seek the willow's eye." Amelia woke with a start, the phrase echoing in her mind. Was it just a dream, a trick of her desperate imagination? Yet, there was a tangible feeling of hope, a faint whisper amidst the ever-present shadows. Throughout the day, the phrase lingered. Willow's eye. Was it a place, a person, a symbol? Hope fueled her research, a frantic search for anything that might connect the dots. Days turned into nights, punctuated by sporadic manifestations of the entity, a disembodied laugh in the attic, objects disappearing and reappearing. Each torment, however, felt less potent, the fear less consuming. Then, in a dusty corner of the attic, hidden beneath a pile of old books, Amelia discovered a weathered wooden chest. Carved onto its surface was a single symbol, a stylized eye embedded within the branches of a willow tree. Her heart pounded in her chest. Could this be the fabled willow's eye? Inside the chest, she found a leather-bound journal filled with her grandmother's cryptic notes and sketches. Page after page detailed obscure rituals, spells, and symbols related to warding off entities and protecting against dark magic. Among them, Amelia found a detailed explanation of the Willow's Eye, a hidden society dedicated to safeguarding against supernatural threats. A sliver of doubt remained. Was this just elaborate lore, a product of her grandmother's eccentric nature? But the faint whispers of hope had solidified into a beacon, urging her forward. Taking a deep breath, Amelia followed the instructions in the journal, performing a simple cleansing ritual in her room, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. That night, the shadows seemed less menacing, the whispers fainter. As she drifted off to sleep, a new dream unfolded. This time, it was clearer, more vivid. A woman with kind eyes and silver hair stood before her, gesturing towards an ancient willow tree, its branches heavy with leaves that shimmered with an ethereal light. Amelia woke with a gasp, the image of the woman etched in her memory. Could she be a member of the Willow's Eye? Was this her chance to find true help? a way to combat the entity for good? Fueled by this newfound hope, Amelia spent the next day deciphering the cryptic clues in her grandmother's journal. Finally, she found a faded map tucked within its pages, leading to a remote location deep within the forest bordering her property. The location matched the image from her dream, a clearing dominated by a centuries-old willow tree. Hesitation warred with desperation. What if this was a trap, another manifestation of the entity's cruelty? But the alternative, succumbing to fear and isolation, seemed far worse. Taking the sigil and her grandmother's journal for comfort, Amelia set out into the forest, determined to find the woman from her dream, the potential ally whispered by hope itself. The journey was long and arduous, the dense woods teeming with unsettling shadows and rustling leaves. Yet, with each step, Amelia felt a growing sense of calm, a newfound resilience fueled by her pursuit of answers. Finally, as the sun began its descent, she stumbled upon the clearing, bathed in the ethereal glow of the ancient willow tree. Beneath its sprawling branches, a small wooden cabin stood nestled amongst the ferns. Hesitantly, Amelia approached, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. A figure emerged from the cabin, the same woman from her dream, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "You have come, Amelia," the woman said, her voice warm and welcoming. "The whispers have reached me." Tears pricked Amelia's eyes. Relief and hope washed over her like a tidal wave. She had found her ally, her potential path to vanquishing the entity and reclaiming her peace. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, Amelia felt a flicker of genuine hope. The shadows still lurked, but the whispers of darkness were drowned out by the promise of a new dawn. Chapter 7. Facing the Fear. Under the watchful gaze of the ancient willow, Amelia learned from the woman, Alara, about the shadow demon and the willow's eye. The entity, they explained, fed on fear and despair, growing stronger with each manifestation. The sigil could shield, but true vanquishing required confronting the core of the fear. Days turned into weeks as Amelia trained, honing her inner strength and understanding the nature of her enemy. Alara guided her through meditative practices, teaching her to harness her emotions, to turn fear into courage and despair into unwavering resilience. During those weeks, the entity remained dormant, a calculated silence that fueled Amelia's suspicion. It was waiting, she knew, for her guard to drop, for a flicker of fear to reignite its power. But Amelia was prepared. Armed with knowledge, newfound strength, and the sigil pulsating with warmth against her chest, she felt ready to face her tormentor. One moonlit night, Amelia returned to her house, not with dread, but with a quiet determination. The silence greeted her like an old enemy, heavy and oppressive. Stepping into the attic, she felt the shift, the air thick with malevolent energy. The darkness coalesced, taking the form of the entity, its red eyes burning with predatory hunger. "You dare return," it rasped, its voice dripping with mockery. "Have you come to offer more fear?" Amelia stood her ground, her voice firm and unwavering. "No, entity," she declared. "I've come to face you, to reclaim my home, and to banish you back to the shadows from whence you came." The entity laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the room. "Foolish mortal," it hissed. "You cannot defeat what you fear." Amelia closed her eyes, drawing on the lessons learned, the strength cultivated within. Images of Alara's teachings flashed before her mind, channeling emotions, using fear as fuel for her resolve. When she opened her eyes, they met the entity's gaze, devoid of fear, replaced by a burning determination. The entity recoiled slightly, surprised by the shift. It had grown accustomed to feasting on Amelia's terror, and this newfound composure seemed to disrupt its power. This momentary advantage fueled Amelia's resolve. She raised the sigil, its lines glowing brighter with each passing second. Chanting words learned from Alara, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins, connecting her to the sigil's power. The attic pulsed with conflicting energies, light battling darkness, courage confronting fear. The entity roared, unleashing a wave of its darkness, enveloping Amelia in a chilling embrace. It was cold, suffocating, filled with whispers of doubt and despair. But Amelia held firm, her voice echoing through the darkness, chanting the words of power. Suddenly, the sigil flared, blinding light erupting from its intricate lines. The darkness shrieked, recoiling from the light like a living thing. The entity stumbled back, its form flickering and distorting. Amelia saw a glimpse beyond the shadows, a twisted amalgamation of negative energy, fueled by countless fears it had consumed. The revelation was fleeting, the entity lashing out in a desperate attempt to extinguish the light. But it was too late. The chanting reached its crescendo, and the sigil unleashed a final burst of power, banishing the entity with a deafening crackle. Silence descended, thick and heavy. The air hung heavy with the lingering echoes of the battle. Amelia, trembling but exhilarated, lowered the sigil. The house felt different, lighter, as if freed from a suffocating weight. She had done it. She had faced her fear, confronted the entity, and sent it back to the darkness. But was it truly over? Was the victory complete? As dawn painted the sky with hues of pink and orange, Amelia knew the battle was far from over. The entity might be weakened, but the shadows it represented, the fears it fed on, lingered within the human heart. Her true victory would lie not just in banishing the entity, but in helping others conquer their own darkness, one whisper of hope at a time. Standing amidst the remnants of the battle, Amelia took a deep breath. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she faced it no longer as a victim, but as a warrior, forever marked by the encounter, forever changed by the whispers of hope that had guided her through the darkness. Chapter 8. The Price of Survival. The entity was gone, but its absence left a void filled with questions and unease. Had it truly been vanquished, or was this merely a temporary reprieve? Amelia knew the answer lay within the ancient book Alara had entrusted to her. Its pages, filled with cryptic symbols and forgotten lore, hinted at a deeper connection between the entity and Amelia's family history. As she delved deeper into the book, a chilling truth emerged. The entity, fueled by fear and despair, had latched onto a dark secret within her lineage, a pact made generations ago with a powerful shadow entity for wealth and prosperity. This pact, now corrupted and twisted, served as the anchor that tethered the demon to their world. The revelation brought a wave of despair. Amelia wasn't just a victim, she was unknowingly bound to the entity's existence. Breaking the pact, according to the book, required a sacrifice, a relinquishing of what was most precious to her. But what was that precious thing? Days turned into weeks as Amelia grappled with the weight of her newfound knowledge. Was it her freedom, her sanity, or something deeper, something she hadn't even realized she held dear? The entity remained silent, its absence a suffocating pressure, a constant reminder of the looming deadline. One night, as she lay awake, haunted by the weight of the decision, a memory surfaced. It was a childhood recollection of her grandmother, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "The shadows always seek a foothold," she had whispered, "and sometimes the greatest sacrifice is not what you give, but what you choose to let go of." Amelia's heart pounded. Was her grandmother hinting at the sacrifice? Was it letting go of the past, of the burden of her family's legacy? The thought was terrifying, like severing a part of herself. Yet, the alternative, living under the shadow of the entity, forever vulnerable, was even more unbearable. With a heavy heart, Amelia made her choice. She wouldn't relinquish her freedom, her sanity, or the love she shared with those close to her. Instead, she would let go of the desire for control, the belief that she could rewrite the past or erase the mistakes of her ancestors. She stood before the ancient willow, the symbol of the willow's eye etched upon its bark. Closing her eyes, she whispered a prayer, not of forgiveness, but of acceptance. She let go of the anger she harbored towards her ancestors, the need to rewrite their choices. In that moment, a sense of peace washed over her, a lightness she hadn't felt in weeks. As she opened her eyes, the air shimmered, and Elora materialized beside her. "You have chosen wisely, Amelia," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "Letting go is the first step to true freedom." Following Elora's guidance, Amelia performed a ritual under the willow tree, offering not material possessions or personal desires, but a promise. She vowed to use her experiences to help others confront their own shadows, to break free from the fear that fueled entities like the one she faced. The air crackled with energy as Amelia completed the ritual. A wave of power surged through her, not from the sigil, but from within. She felt lighter, stronger, connected to something far greater than herself. Then, silence. No screams, no darkness. The entity was gone, its hold on their world severed. Amelia had won, not through brute force or external power, but through self-acceptance and the courage to let go. But the victory came at a cost. The entity might be gone, but the shadows it represented still lingered. Amelia knew her journey was far from over. She had become a beacon of hope, a guide for others lost in their own darkness. The responsibility weighed heavily on her, but she was no longer alone. The willow's eye stood beside her, and the whispers of hope, once faint, now resonated with a powerful, collective strength. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing, Amelia knew the true battle had just begun. The fight against fear, despair, and the darkness within wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. Armed with her newfound strength, her connection to the willow's eye, and the whispers of hope that echoed within her, she would face the shadows, one step, one whisper at a time. Chapter 9. Breaking the Rules. Weeks had passed since Amelia banished the entity, yet its absence resonated like a deafening silence. Its hold on the house, like an invisible anchor, had been severed, leaving an unsettling emptiness in its wake. But Amelia knew the victory was temporary. The book warned of residual effects, lingering echoes of the pact that could bind another entity or twist her own will. Days bled into nights as Amelia pored over the ancient text, searching for a definitive way to sever the pact and ensure the entity's permanent demise. Elora offered guidance, her wisdom tempered by caution. "Playing with entities is akin to dancing with demons," she warned. "Be careful what rules you bend, Amelia, for they may bend you back." Frustration gnawed at Amelia. Each night, she dreamt of the entity, its red eyes mocking her, whispering of revenge. Sleep offered no solace, only a chilling reminder of the precarious peace. It was during one such dream that a memory surfaced, a fragmented image of her grandmother chanting amidst an intricate circle of stones. Fueled by the dream, Amelia revisited the old journals, meticulously combing through faded notes and sketches. Finally, hidden beneath a cryptic riddle, she found a diagram of the stone circle she had dreamt of, accompanied by a ritual titled Severing the Shadow's Thread. Hope flared, but it was quickly doused by the chilling inscription beneath the ritual. "This rite demands a price, a tether to the light to banish the darkness. Tread carefully, for the price may be more than you bargained for." Sleep that night was a torment of conflicting emotions. Was the ritual the answer, or a desperate gamble with untold consequences? The entity seemed dormant, but Amelia knew its silence was a ploy, waiting for her to make a misstep. Torn between desperation and caution, she confided in Alara. The wise woman examined the ritual, her brow furrowed in concern. This is powerful magic, Amelia. It could sever the pact, but the price. It could bind you to the very shadows you seek to banish. The choice was stark: remain vulnerable to the entity's return, or risk becoming its unwilling host. The thought of sacrificing herself was terrifying, but the alternative, an entire town shrouded in its oppressive darkness, was far worse. With a heavy heart, Amelia decided to proceed. Under Alara's watchful guidance, she prepared for the ritual. The night arrived, cloaked in an oppressive silence. Under the watchful gaze of the full moon, Amelia stood within the stone circle, chanting the ancient words, feeling the power ripple outwards, echoing in the very fabric of the land. As she reached the climax of the ritual, the air crackled with energy. The ground trembled, and the stones glowed with an ethereal light. Then, a shadow materialized within the circle, its form swirling and shifting, fueled by the residual darkness of the pact. The entity, weakened but far from vanquished, recognized the ritual. Its rage was palpable, the air thick with its chilling laughter. Foolish, mortal, it rasped, its voice dripping with malice. You cannot rewrite the past, only become its prisoner. Terror threatened to consume Amelia, but she held firm, channeling the whispers of hope, the strength she had gleaned from her journey. Extending her hand, she embraced the shadow, her voice unwavering. "The past cannot bind me," she declared. "I choose to break free, and in doing so, sever the darkness." A blinding light erupted as the shadow surged into her hand, seeking to consume her from within. Price, she realized, wasn't her life, but a piece of her soul. Yet, she held on, channeling the light of the ritual, the whispers of hope within, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The struggle was excruciating. She screamed, not from physical pain, but from the inner battle raging within. But slowly, the light pushed back, inch by inch, banishing the shadows piece by piece. With a final burst of energy, the shadow recoiled, dissipating into nothingness. The light subsided, leaving Amelia trembling, drained, yet undeniably victorious. The pact was broken, the entity's anchor severed, but the price remained. Exhausted, she collapsed within the circle, the whispers of hope now tinged with a faint echo of darkness. Alara helped her up, her face etched with concern. "The darkness is gone, Amelia," she said, her voice filled with relief. "But remember, the shadows linger within us all. Be vigilant, for the battle within the heart never truly ends." Dawn painted the sky with hues of orange and pink as Amelia left the circle, her steps faltering. The victory was bittersweet. She had saved herself, her town, but the darkness she vanquished had left a mark, a constant reminder of the price she paid. The journey ahead was uncertain. The shadows within, now muted. Chapter 10. All bets are off. The days following the ritual were a blur of exhaustion and unease. The darkness within Amelia, though subdued, pulsed like a malevolent ember, a constant reminder of the price she paid. Sleep offered no solace, haunted by fragmented dreams of the entity, its laughter echoing in the silent corners of her mind. News of the entity's disappearance spread like wildfire, relief washing over the town. But Amelia knew their reprieve was fragile. The darkness it represented, the fear it fed on, still lingered in the hearts of men. One evening, A panicked call shattered the fragile peace. A young woman, Sarah, claimed she was being tormented by a shadowy entity, its form eerily similar to Amelia's description. Fear gnawed at Amelia. Was it a residual manifestation, a harbinger of the entity's return, or something entirely new? Driven by a sense of responsibility and a flicker of hope, Amelia, alongside Elara, went to Sarah's aid. The house hummed with a palpable unease, the shadows dancing with a malicious energy. Sarah, pale and trembling, recounted her experiences, whispers in the night, objects vanishing and reappearing, an oppressive feeling of dread. As Amelia investigated, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The entity wasn't targeting Sarah, it was targeting her. The whispers, the fear, they were amplified, seeking to exploit the darkness within her, to use it as a conduit for its return. Panic threatened to consume her, but Alora's calm voice steadied her nerves. "The darkness within you can be a weapon, Amelia," she said, her eyes filled with a grave determination. "But wielding it is a dangerous dance. Be wary of the line between good and evil." Amelia knew Elara was right. The darkness, though a burden, held a power she could potentially use to banish the entity for good. But the risk was immense. One wrong step, one moment of succumbing to the shadow's seductive whispers, and she could become the very monster she sought to destroy. Desperate and determined, Amelia devised a plan. She would confront the entity, not with the light of the ritual, but with the darkness within, mirroring its form, its power. It was a gamble, a dance on the precipice of oblivion. As night descended, she prepared herself, channeling the shadows, allowing them to ebb and flow within her, becoming an echo of the entity itself. Stepping into the attic, she felt its presence, a cold, hungry awareness. The entity materialized, its red eyes gleaming with amusement. "You think to mimic me, mortal?" it rasped, its voice dripping with malice. "You are but a moth drawn to the flame." Amelia met its gaze, her voice resonating with the borrowed power of the shadows. "I am not here to mimic you," she declared, "but to banish you. The darkness within me binds you, and it will be your undoing." The entity laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the room. "Foolish girl, you cannot control the darkness." Amelia lunged forward, fueled by a desperate resolve. The battle raged, a clash of wills and borrowed power. The attic pulsed with conflicting energies, the shadows swirling in a macabre dance. Amelia fought with a ferocity born of desperation and fear, pushing the darkness within her to its limits. The line between good and evil blurred, the whispers in her mind growing louder, urging her to succumb, to embrace the power at any cost. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope remained. The whispers of Elara, the faces of the townspeople she protected, fueled her resolve. She wouldn't let the darkness win, not while there was still good left to fight for. With a final surge of power, Amelia unleashed the darkness within, not in a destructive blast, but in a blinding wave of pure will. The entity recoiled, its form flickering and distorting. It screamed, a sound of pure agony, as the echoes of its own darkness turned against it. Then, silence. The entity vanished, leaving behind a faint wisp of smoke and a chilling quiet. The darkness within Amelia subsided, leaving her trembling, exhausted, but alive. Victorious, yet forever marked by the dance with the shadows, Amelia stood amidst the wreckage of the attic. The battle was over, but the war within had just begun. She knew the darkness wouldn't be easily banished. It would linger, a constant temptation, a reminder of the price she paid and the power she wielded. As dawn painted the sky with hues of hope, Amelia knew her journey had taken an unexpected turn. She was no longer just a victim, but a guardian, forever teetering on the edge of darkness, forever fighting to keep the light within alive. The whispers of hope, once faint, now resonated with a newfound urgency, a call. Chapter 11: The Final Consequence. Years had passed since Amelia's first encounter with the entity, years marked by whispers of darkness and the constant struggle to maintain her own light. She became known as the Shadow Walker, a protector who danced on the edge of the abyss, wielding the darkness within to banish other entities drawn to the town. But the whispers persisted, growing louder, hinting at a resurgence of the original entity, a final confrontation waiting to unfold. The townspeople, initially wary of Amelia's unorthodox methods, now sought her aid with a mix of fear and gratitude. One night, the whispers reached a crescendo. A chilling presence blanketed the town, fear crawling into every corner. The entity had returned, stronger, fueled by the echoes of its past defeat and the collective dread it reveled in. Amelia knew this was her final battle, a fight not just for herself, but for the very soul of the town. Armed with the sigil, the lessons learned, and the flickering ember of hope within, she ventured into the heart of the darkness, an abandoned mine shaft rumored to be the entity's lair. The air grew thick and oppressive as she descended deeper, the whispers morphing into taunts and mocking laughter. The darkness seemed to press against her, testing her resolve, promising power in exchange for surrender. Finally, she reached a vast cavern, its walls shimmering with an unsettling light. In the center, the entity materialized, its form a swirling vortex of shadows, its red eyes burning with malevolent glee. "Foolish mortal," it rasped, its voice echoing through the cavern. "You return to face your inevitable demise." Amelia stood tall, her voice unwavering. "This ends now, entity," she declared. "The darkness you feed on will be your undoing. The town will not succumb to your fear." The entity laughed, a sound that shook the very foundations of the cavern. "You cannot defeat what you are, mortal. Embrace the darkness within, and together we will rule this world." But Amelia knew the entity was wrong. The darkness within wasn't her enemy. It was her shield, a tool to be wielded with responsibility. Closing her eyes, she focused, channeling the whispers of hope, the faces of the townspeople she protected. The sigil pulsed with warmth against her chest, its power resonating with her own. She wasn't just Amelia, the Shadow Walker. She was the embodiment of their collective hope, their defiance against the darkness. Opening her eyes, she met the entity's gaze, her own filled with a newfound resolve. "I choose hope," she declared, unleashing the power within. The cavern pulsed with light and darkness clashing. The entity roared in fury, its form shifting, morphing into monstrous shapes, each fueled by the fears of the townspeople. But Amelia stood her ground, her resolve unwavering. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. Amelia pushed herself beyond her limits, the darkness within threatening to consume her, the whispers promising an easier path. Yet, she clung to the embers of hope, channeling it into each strike, each parry. Finally, with a surge of power, she unleashed a wave of light, not from the sigil, but from her own will, imbued with the collective hope she represented. The entity shrieked, its form dissolving into wisps of smoke, its screams echoing through the cavern before fading into an eerie silence. Victory, but it wasn't without a price. The darkness within her, though subdued, remained, a constant reminder of the battle fought, the line walked. The townspeople celebrated her victory, their gratitude a balm to her weary spirit. Yet, Amelia knew the true battle had just begun. The darkness wasn't just external, but internal, a constant struggle within each individual. She would continue to be the Shadow Walker, but now her role was more than just banishing entities. It was about fostering hope, reminding everyone of the light within, the power to choose not fear, but courage, not despair, but resilience. The final consequence of her journey wasn't just defeating the entity, but becoming a symbol, a beacon guiding others through their own darkness. The whispers of hope, once a faint echo, now resonated with the strength of a collective voice, a chorus of resilience against the shadows that forever lingered, waiting for a chance to rise again. And Amelia, forever marked by her brush with the abyss, would stand guard, ready to face the darkness, not just with borrowed power, but with the unwavering light of her own hope. Chapter 12. Echoes of Darkness. Years spun their web, transforming the bustling town into a haven of serenity. The memory of the entity's reign lived on in hushed whispers and bedtime stories, a chilling reminder of the darkness that once threatened to consume them. Amelia, the Shadow Walker, became a legend, her name etched in the town's history as a symbol of courage and resilience. Yet, for Amelia, the shadows remained a constant companion. The pact severed, the darkness within subdued but not vanquished. It manifested in fleeting chills, unsettling dreams, and the ever-present temptation to succumb to its seductive whispers of power and control. She wore the sigil not as a trophy, but as a reminder of the price paid, the responsibility she carried. Her days were dedicated to nurturing the light within the townspeople, guiding them through moments of fear and doubt. She taught them to harness their own inner light, to recognize the whispers of darkness, and confront them with courage. One evening, a young boy named Ethan sought her counsel. Fear clouded his eyes, his voice trembling as he spoke of shadows dancing in his room, whispers promising comfort and power. Amelia saw a reflection of her own past in his terror. She didn't dismiss his fears, but offered him tools to face them. She taught him meditation techniques, encouraged him to share his anxieties with loved ones, and instilled in him the importance of fostering the light within. As weeks turned into months, the shadows in Ethan's room faded, replaced by a newfound confidence and inner strength. Such victories, however, were met with challenges. Rumors of darkness, stirring in neighboring towns, surfaced. Whispers of entities drawn to pockets of fear and despair. Amelia, weary but resolute, traveled to these towns, offering her guidance and battling the shadows alongside their protectors. The battles were different now. No longer did she wield the borrowed darkness within. Instead, she relied on the collective light she helped cultivate, the stories of resilience shared, the embers of hope she had fanned into flames. It was a slower, more arduous fight, but the victories felt more substantial, more enduring. Years later, Amelia stood amongst the townspeople, celebrating a vibrant festival of light. Laughter filled the air, children danced with glowing lanterns, and a sense of peace settled over the town like a warm blanket. As she gazed at the smiling faces, she saw not just gratitude, but the reflection of their own inner light, a testament to her journey. Yet, amidst the joy, a flicker of darkness danced at the edge of her vision. It was faint, almost inconsequential, but it served as a stark reminder. The battle wasn't over. The shadows would always linger, seeking cracks in the armor of light, whispering promises of despair. But Amelia was no longer afraid. The darkness within her, once a burden, now served as a shield, a constant reminder of the depths she had traversed and the strength she had gained. She had become more than just the Shadow Walker. She was a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of light in the face of darkness. As the festival reached its climax, 1,000 lanterns were released into the night sky, their flames painting the darkness with streaks of hope. Amelia watched them ascend, a bittersweet smile playing on her lips. The echoes of darkness might linger, but so would the whispers of hope carried on the wings of fireflies, lighting the way for generations to come. The story of Amelia, the Shadow Walker, wasn't just about a single victory over darkness. It was a testament to the enduring human spirit, the power of community, and the choice to embrace the light, even when surrounded by shadows. And as long as those embers of hope remained, the darkness would never truly win.